Matthew, known as Levi, he was a tax collector, which means he was not popular. But when Jesus called on him to follow him, Matthew left everything to follow Jesus. Having heard his words, having seen his work, he concluded that this Jesus is the Messiah, and he relinquished his life to become one of Jesus' disciples. He was authorized to write the book of Matthew, the first book of the New Testament. And the summary of that book is real simple. He's introducing, particularly to the Jews and beyond, the King and his kingdom, the Messiah. Matthew is the culmination of all of the Old Testament's anticipation that God was going to send his messianic servant. He was going to send the king of his kingdom who would rule as his regent on earth to offer the kingdom to his people, the Jews, through whom he would rule the whole world. So Matthew's primary concern is giving convincing evidence that Jesus Christ is the long-awaited Messiah. He is the king that the Jews have been waiting for and that the world desperately needed. That's why he starts off with Jesus' genealogy in the book of Matthew. Because you see, the Messiah had to come through the line of David. And so he gives the list. Now, some people don't like lists in the Bible. They think it's boring. But when you understand why they're there, they can be quite exciting. Because he lists the trail of the lineage. It's kind of like Ancestry.com. I mean, he's listing how Jesus Christ can be traced back legally through the line of Joseph to David, giving justification that he qualifies on that basis. But not only his genealogy, because many people may be able to link their lives back there, but when you heard his teaching, coupled with watching his miracles, then it was clear through the dozens of Old Testament quotes that Jesus uses and applies to himself, through the teaching of his kingdom message in chapter 5 through chapter 7 of Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, the greatest message ever preached, through his kingdom discourses, talking about the mysterious way that the kingdom would unfold during the time between Jesus' first coming and his second coming, during his challenge to the religious leaders who had misguided the population away from the true anticipation of the Old Testament. In fact, even at Jesus' birth, they knew the scriptures but weren't willing to go to Bethlehem, which the prophets had declared would be the location of Jesus' birth, to find who he was. Wise men from the east had to locate him, even though the professors of the Bible had the scripture and knew what it said. He continues to unfold miracle after miracle, teaching after teaching. The disciples now being equipped to help him carry the message of his messianic claim and as the arrival of his kingdom in the midst of God's people. Well, that's what Matthew is all about, but it leads to a very disquieting conclusion, the crucifixion. That would raise a question. If our Messiah is being crucified, then how can he in fact be the Messiah? It's clear from the text that the disciples didn't understand all that. Of course, that brings in the resurrection which Jesus had prophesied, validated that he was indeed Messiah. And it wasn't a private scene. It was seen by over 500 brethren in what was called the Great Commission, where he commissions all of them to go into the world and create visible, verbal representatives of him, more disciples. Make disciples. It's a command. It's the commission to go worldwide with the message that the king has come. His kingdom is in this world, and it will arrive at some point in the future to rule over this world. Matthew sets the stage for the Jew first, but then for all who would become part of the family of God. That means Matthew includes you and me.